Good. Hello, friends. Welcome to our Young Historians virtual event. My name is Libby McCants, and I'm a museum programs coordinator with the Kentucky Historical Society. We're so thrilled that you all could be here today, whether you're watching live or you're watching later on in the recording. So the Kentucky Historical Society, we're the state's kind of history keepers. We're the official state history museum located in downtown Frankfort in the heart of Kentucky's capital. We also run the Old State Capitol and the Kentucky Military History Museum, also located downtown. The Military Museum is housed in the Old State Arsenal. And today we are here to talk about the things that you can do with history. We're all nerds here. We all, everyone that works here is. And we just wanted to share some things that we've learned along the way, and also sharing where you can find a good history program, depending on your interest, and also what you can do with that. Because a lot of what we hear a lot is, good luck finding a job in history. It's in the humanities, don't waste your time. And so hopefully this will give some good resources. If after the fact, when the recording is sent out, anyone has any additional questions that we don't get to today, please feel free to send them our way. You should all have my email address, and I'll forward them to the people. So let's get started. Thank you, ladies, so much for being here today. Of course. Would you all mind introducing yourselves and telling us your job title?
Sure. So my name is Alyssa Ollier, and I'm the digital archivist here at KHS.
I'm Liz Merman, and I'm the exhibits manager here at KHS.
Fantastic. So starting with you, Alyssa, can you tell our viewers, what is it that you do? What is a digital archivist? What do you do here for KHS?
Yeah, sure. So digital archivist can mean a lot of different things depending on where a digital archivist works. But here at KHS, my primary role is to take material from our archives, so our secure location where we store our original material like letters and diaries and photographs and things like that, to take that archival material, digitize it, and put it online for people to learn from and enjoy. So the physical process of digitizing, uploading it to the website and maintaining that website. All of our digital stuff is available at kyhistory.com for free. So I do a lot of work with that site, and then answering questions from students and teachers and researchers from really all around the world. Sometimes I even work in the library to see people in person and help them with their research. So kind of a whole bunch of different things, but mostly just digital things related to archives.
And you're also the person, right? If people like another museum wanted to reproduce one of our digital photographs or collections, that you're also the person that handles that.
Yes. So one of the hats that I wear is I'm the collections rights and reproduction manager. So yeah, if somebody wants to put our stuff in a book or make a documentary, or if they want to make a poster or something like that, I can get them the files they need and talk to them about kind of what permissions they might need to do that and walk them through that process as well.
Fantastic. Same question to you, Liz. What do you do at the Kentucky Historical Society?
Well, as the exhibits manager, I get to work closely with Alyssa and also our curatorial team. And they pick objects that they want to tell a certain story from history with, and I help them present it essentially. Like, should it be in a case? How should it be displayed? What's the mount? What are the graphic materials that go with it? How do you want people to encounter it, in what order, and just what's the best way to learn this story?
You also do a fair bit of graphic design too, with like setting things up as well.
I do. I think visual learning is really important, especially when, you're putting this cool object like in context, but just any way that you can interact with it, learn about it, and kind of like the history, the secret lives of objects.
I love that.
I like to put out there for the audience.
Yeah, well, you both do a great job. We utilize your talents all the time. We're always coming and asking you guys for help. So Alyssa, what was your educational path for, students who some I know are in middle school, some in high school, some in college? How did you get to where you are?
Yeah, so I've always been kind of like a book nerd, a history nerd, always, reading about different things. I went to college, so I went to the University of Kentucky in Lexington, where some of you might be. And I first majored in English because I was a book kid. I was like, what do? You got to major in English. And then I had minors in history and then Latin, which has been another passion of mine. And in the process of that, I realized I didn't actually like literature. I was more interested in like the actual physical book. So like the item, where do we get all these texts from? They're in actual physical items, and it's somebody's job to take care of those items where we get all these texts from. And I had a friend who introduced me to the Special Collections Library at UK, where they keep all their manuscripts and rare books and things. And the very first time I went in there, I like completely fell head over heels in love with it. And I was like, I have to work in archives. I have to do this as a job. And so it was a little bit, twisty and turny. So after undergrad, I went to grad school at the University of Indiana in Bloomington. And I got my master's in library science with a concentration in rare books and manuscripts librarianship, which is a thing you can study. And it was a great time, but COVID kind of happened in the middle of it, and I had to pick up a lot of digital skills because there really wasn't anything else to do because there was nothing open. I was just at home with my laptop all day. So I learned a lot of different talents, different things that kind of helped me in the digital archives world. And that's kind of how I ended up at KHS, is I just fit right into that little niche here.
That's really cool. So remind me, what year did you start working here?
I started working here in 2021. So this was my first job out of grad school. I was really, really lucky to end up here, and I've been here ever since.
That's awesome. Well, you do a lot of great work. What about you, Liz? What was your educational path?
I did my undergrad in graphic design and art. And before I was in museums, I actually worked as an art director and designer for about 15 years, mostly in marketing and advertising. My first design job was working for NASCAR.
Oh my word.
Which is
That's so cool.
completely opposite of what I'm doing now.
That's crazy.
And I liked doing design, but I didn't necessarily like the marketing aspect of it. So right before COVID, I decided that I wanted to put my design skills toward something that I really cared about. And museums have always been my happy place. And I just think they're really cool, special places. And
Yeah.
I was like, that's what I want to do. So I went to the University of Washington in Seattle and got my master's degree in museology, which is like a fancy word for museum studies.
That's really cool. So remind me how you ended up here in Frankfort, Kentucky.
Well, there was the job that I wanted, and working in exhibits, and I was fresh out of grad school, and it was hard to find a museum job like right after COVID.
Yeah.
But I think after interviewing here, I was just really excited about the opportunity, and I just thought it would be a really cool job.
Yeah.
And it turns out it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Liz makes some really cool stuff. You tell her and say, hey, I need this or I need that. And she's kind of magic. She just kind of makes it happen.
We're really happy to have her.
So Alyssa, why and how should students pursue your job?
Yeah, so let's see. So as you all probably know, I think that the big conversation right now is about the virtual world all the time, right? We talk about AI, we talk about social media and cell phones and all this stuff. And like, that's everybody's focus. And something I always want to emphasize to people is like all this cool stuff that we're making in the digital world, like we still have to take care of it and preserve it for the future, right? And there's actually a whole sub-discipline of my field called digital preservation. We really need people to get into it, or else all the stuff that we're making now is going to just like fall apart. Have you ever been to like a website like that you liked as a kid and you go back to it and you click on it and it's gone? It's because nobody saved it, nobody backed it up or chose to kind of preserve that content. And so we need a lot of folks to work on all this cool stuff we're making and save it so future generations can know what we were like and what we did for fun. And the same way that we study our parents and their parents, but with them, we have more physical things to study. So it's very cutting edge. And that would be my advice, is we really need people to do that. And to do that, I mean, you can, like I said, my path was very windy. You can do lots of different things. You can do computer science, you can do archival science or library science. Even like some historic preservation programs are now kind of getting into this kind of concept, or digital humanities is a field you'll hear a lot. You probably do have to get an advanced degree or at least a certification, just because there's a lot of super technical skills that you need, a lot of super technical computer skills. But I think it's worth it. And like I said, it's really important.
Yeah. You're the treasure keeper. You keep
Yeah.
all that together.
Yeah, we build the worlds and then we also have to keep the world safe, right?
Yes.
So it's both and.
Yeah, and that's why I called you guys the world builders.
Right.
Is you're building the digital world and Liz is building the physical one that we house and kind of keep our stuff in. So Liz, same question to you. Why and how should students pursue your job?
If you are creative and you like making things, and if you're that person who's always looking for the secret room or the secret staircase,
yeah.
or you want to know what's going on behind the scenes, I would say you should work at museums. You want to know the great mysteries of the world, just come right in. I would say, you know, besides getting like a higher education, you can always volunteer at a local museum
yeah.
or a library. You can participate in National History Day. They have
Yes.
an exhibits
Excellent.
group. So you can like focus on a historic topic that you're really interested in
Yeah.
and learn how to exhibit stuff. And I mean, yeah, I would just say like pursue what you love.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice. And then lastly, Alyssa, what is the coolest / most meaningful experience you have had at your job? I know a lot of us have had a lot, but
Yeah.
what has been the moment where you're like, this is worth it?
Yes, and it's so hard because people ask me that a lot. They're like, "What's your favorite thing in the collection?" Or like, "What's your favorite
Yeah.
moment?" And like, this is gonna be such a, I don't know, this is just a me answer, but it's not even one particular artifact that jumps out at me. It's the fact that I get to work with real historical objects that are hundreds of years old. So like even today, like an hour ago, I was like face to face with a hat that was worn by Cassius Clay, who's this like, you know, you read about him in history books, like you all might study him in class, but he was a real human and he owned clothes and he wrote on physical paper that we can look at and touch. And so like when I get to do that, when I get to get up and close and personal with documents and I see like somebody's fingerprint on a document because they didn't wash their hands, or like I see a handwritten note on the back of a photo, it really brings history into the foreground for me, and it makes it really immediate and human. So like
Yeah.
people in history, that was just their everyday life. You know, we study it as history, but they were just getting up and going to work every day.
Yeah.
So just getting to do that with the artifacts, it just delights me.
Yeah. That's so cool. And what about you, Liz? What is the coolest or most meaningful thing that has happened to you while you've worked here?
I think getting to work with recent history and like history in the making and getting to meet the people behind the object is really exciting. We have this one quilt in our collection that was made by the Kentucky mask makers during COVID.
Yes.
And they gifted it to Andy Bashir, and they didn't really know what happened to it after that. So it was really exciting to get to find them online and let them know the quilt was going on display. They had never met each other before. It's a group that was like totally online. And so they all came out to see the quilt. I got to meet them. And they were just, it was so cool to see like how proud they were to like take a picture with their quilt and really get to know like those community stories behind it. Again, like the secret lives of objects. But just the meaning that objects can have, and getting to learn about that is really cool.
Yeah. And I'll agree with that. When we opened our temporary exhibit, Our Stories, Our Service, of a woman came up and handed me her phone and asked me to take a photo of her. And then I realized I was taking her picture in front of her object that she donated, and that she was in the military and was kind of this pioneer of a woman veteran. And she's like, "Oh, this is me." And that was so cool.
Because history is a living thing.
Yes.
It's happening now.
Every day.
Yeah, and we all make that together. Well, guys, thank you so much.
Of course.
You guys are
Yes.
amazing. And like I said, if you didn't have a question that's forming or didn't quite get it out in time, please email it to me after, and I will pass it along to Liz and Lisa. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks for having us, Olivia.
Oh, it's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. So we will be having a couple more folks come in just a second. But in the meantime, if you are in high school or middle school, I've made a list that I will email out after this of kind of where do you go if you want, this is piquing your interest, and you're thinking, well, where can I even find a school that teaches these type of things? There are a lot of them in Kentucky. Hi. And so public, and if you're looking for public colleges, universities that offer history degrees, Northern Kentucky University, NKU, University of Kentucky, UK, University of Louisville, U of L, Western Kentucky University, Eastern Kentucky University, and Murray State University all offer bachelor's programs in history. Welcome, ladies. Y'all are welcome to have a seat. Thank you all for being here. So our friends are right here, and then if anybody types any questions, then we'll be able to see. Well, welcome.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you guys so much for being here today.
Thanks for having us, Olivia.
It's always a pleasure to see you all. So, would you all mind by introducing yourself and telling us your job title?
Yeah. So I'm Ashley Bazenka, and I am the registrar here at Kentucky Historical Society.
And I'm Jennifer Downs. I'm a curator here at KHS.
Oh, fantastic. These lovely ladies do so much fantastic work. We would not have things in the museum if it weren't for them. They keep everything safe, which is why in the purposes of labeling, I feel like you all are the caregivers, you take care of everything. So starting with you, Ashley, can you explain what exactly it is that you do here at KHS? Like, what is a registrar?
Yeah, so I think that the best way to kind of describe what a registrar does is I provide access to the objects in our collection. So I help with and kind of coordinate getting items ready to go out for display, like in exhibits or special displays or anything like that. If we have a researcher who comes in and wants to see something, I arrange that. When people donate things to us, I take care of making sure like all of the paperwork is in order, that we have clear legal title to it. And then also just making sure that we know where everything is, basically.
Yeah, that's very important.
Yeah.
Especially the paperwork part.
Yes, definitely.
Of making sure that people know that we own what we have.
Yeah.
And what about you, Jennifer? Can you explain what a curator does?
Sure. As a curator, I am similar to Ashley, responsible for the care of the collection, not only the physical care of the collection, making sure that we're preserving objects in our collection, keeping in mind caring for it for long-term preservation for generations to come. But I'm also responsible for the research of the collection and how we interpret and share stories about those collections items to our visitors. Curators work on exhibition projects, developing exhibitions through research, working with donors to sort of develop our collecting plan and the shape of and direction of our collections, and working with donors and really wonderful colleagues and across communities, not only within the institution, but also outwardly as well.
It's like how I explained to the little kids who come on field trips, you know, all that stuff you see in the museum, all the nice labels that tell you everything about it. It doesn't just appear like that. Like somebody had to do that. Somebody had to do all that research. That's awesome.
Research, and then also just determining those stories to best share with our public to make everyone feel welcome and represented in our doors.
That's true. We can't display
Exactly.
everything. Yeah, we
Right,
can't display everything at the same time. So that's great. Ashley, what was your educational path? Like, how did you get here?
Yeah, so I majored in history in college, and then I went on to graduate school and got a master's in history with a certificate in museum studies. I worked at a lot of different roles before I became a registrar. I worked as an museum educator, so working with school groups, doing field trips. I worked as an event facilitator, so I would help people who rented out the museum as like for weddings and other special events like that. I worked as a public programs coordinator, so working on events and programming for people, ages 18 and up, so kind of older than our school groups. And I was also the National History Day coordinator here in Kentucky as well before I became a registrar.
Yeah, Ashley used to work right next to me. And Liz was mentioning that in the last session about that some of our viewers who either will watch live or on the recording are middle schoolers.
Yeah.
And so she was advocating if you want to learn more about joining the National History Day program.
Yeah, National History Day is fantastic. I did it when I was in middle school. So yeah, definitely reach out to Sydney is our wonderful coordinator now,
Yeah.
so definitely reach out to us if you want some more information.
Because you get to actually curate
Yeah,
your own exhibit and
Definitely,
different things.
it's
So
an active curator.
good practice.
Mhm.
What about you, Jennifer? What was your career path?
Well, my career path, I studied art history at the
Uh-huh.
University of Kentucky. So I have a bachelor's in art history, and then I went on to earn my master's degree in history of decorative arts at the Cooper Hewitt National Design Museum, which is a Smithsonian institution that is affiliated with the Parsons School of Design. They have a joint program, and the history of decorative arts and design is a history and art history degree that focuses more closely on furniture, metalwork, textiles, ceramics, and the history of interiors, etc. So I always knew I wanted to be a curator. So I kind of started in on that path and interned in different museums, volunteered as many, as many opportunities as I could.
That's
So-
awesome. And we have a lot of internship and volunteer opportunities here that I will send out after this. We even have like great internship openings. So Ashley, what career advice would you give to your younger self?
Probably like, museums can be a hard field to get into, especially like if you want to do like one specific thing, like you want to be a curator. I knew I wanted to work in collections in some way. Sometimes there's not always like the job opening for the job that you want to have like as your end goal. So I would say, don't be afraid to like work in different parts of the museum. Like I said, I worked a lot in education departments, to kind of get your foot in the door. It definitely helps, to like get to know the other people you work with, get to know the people who are in the jobs that you want to be in. They can serve as mentors, or, if an opportunity comes up, then they can then, recommend you or advocate for you, when the role that you do really want comes up. So yeah, that's what I would say is don't be
Yeah.
afraid to kind of to try things that you might not want to like stay in that position forever, but don't be afraid to do it, for short term to kind of get some experience.
Yeah, that's great advice. What about you?
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on what Ashley said. I think that, maybe there's some mystery surrounding the museum field, and what it really means to work in a museum beyond just the subject matter that you're studying. I would say, similar to what Ashley said, intern, volunteer, and talk to as many people in the field as you can, and really kind of just ask them out for coffee, have an informational, interview, find out what they're working on, keep your kind of ear to the ground about what's happening in the field. Look at websites, look through their catalog, public facing catalog materials, subscribe to professional organizations. I think all of those things are really helpful. And I think really find your passion, like do a passion project, participate in symposia, write papers, try to get yourself published, or just all of those things to keep yourself kind of on the forefront of what's happening in your field is very, very helpful.
Yeah.
And go visit lots of museums
Yeah.
too, and go to see them, I think, and try to put yourself like in the shoes of, what would the curator be like looking at, like try to look at things like as a curator, or like as an educator, if education is a field you want to go into, like how, like what can I take away from this, or like what do I think they do really well, what do I think they could improve upon. I think trying to be critical, even if it's just like for yourself,
Right.
to kind of learn to look at museum exhibits in a new way.
Right. And I think just finding what you're passionate about, and because curators and other museum professionals, they're looked to be experts in their field and in a certain area of expertise. So find that passion and just really hone in and lean into that. At the same time, refining your research and your writing skills, so that when you are faced with, having to learn something and become an expert in something very quickly, you have the skills to do that.
Yeah, I would say that's really good rule of thumb for anybody, even casually pursuing
Yeah.
histories. You have
Yeah.
to be able to write
Right.
well
Yeah.
Right.
and know how to research. Yeah, for sure. So Ashley, how and why should students pursue your job? Like, why should people want to be a registrar?
Well, I think registrar is a pretty cool job.
Yeah.
I think that it's all museum jobs are important. I think a registrar is especially important because without registrars, museum collections would quickly become essentially unusable. Because, it really is the registrar's job and focus to make sure that we know where everything in the collection is, why we have it in the collection, and any kind of additional information that we might need to know about it, and that's, I work very closely with Jennifer and the rest of the curatorial team, and we, between, the two of our jobs, we really make sure that the items in our collection are usable and useful, and, we know why they're important, because if we don't know why they're important, then there's no reason for us to have them in a museum. And so, I think that the registrar's job is really, focused in on making sure all of that, the paperwork and all of that is kept up to date, in order that curators like Jennifer can then go in and do research and create interpretation and make great exhibits and all these sorts of things with these collections. So, refine, registrars have to be really organized. They have to, be able to manipulate data and use databases and things like that. And so yeah, those are some of the skills to kind of develop if registrar is the path you want to go down.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, I love being a curator for a lot of different reasons. Just here at the Kentucky Historical Society, for example, just surrounded by a lot of other professionals who are passionate about the same things I'm passionate about. History, art, material culture, and helping to share the stories of our history out to our visitors and our communities, and making everyone better understand their histories and our place in, our place here in the world, and help preserve the objects that help to tell the stories. It's really great to work in a place like KHS, a smaller museum, because we're dealing with, things that run the gamut from like a portrait to maybe a Tupperware container from the 19th century, or a quilt that maybe reminds you of something that your grandmother had. So it's just a wonderful way to preserve and tell the stories of our history and our people who lived here in Kentucky through the items that they lived with. And just being able to be surrounded by wonderful people, wonderful objects, get the time in my day to really do a deep dive and research into things that are fascinating, and I want to share those stories with our public.
Yeah.
So
That's really great.
lots of reasons.
Yeah. And
maybe how to do that. I forgot that part. I think, just leaning into your studies, art history, environmental history, whatever you're passionate about. And most curators have master's degrees, and many have PhDs. So I would say, and then just connect, make your, network, go to museums, meet people, talk to people, read, research, write, all of the things.
Yeah, that's great. And then lastly, Ashley and then Jennifer, what is the coolest / most meaningful experience you've had at your job?
I couldn't think of just like one thing to
It doesn't have
say.
to be just one.
But for me, like, honestly, the coolest thing is anytime that we get to like put something out on display, or like we do here at KHS, we do textile rotations of the different costumes in a couple different periods of time throughout our main gallery. And anytime we successfully dress a costume form, and we get the shape of the skirt right, or we put a nice bustle on it and it just looks so good, and we put it out on display. We did. That's just, every time we do that, I'm like, we have the coolest jobs. We really do. That's just, it's such a thrill every time you get something out and ready for the public to see, something new. So yeah, that's kind of the coolest part, is getting things ready for the public to see, for me.
Yes, for sure. That is great. I think similarly, just bringing something out of storage, and it's like getting something out of someone's attic and just kind of sharing it with our visitors. I think I've had a lot of myriad experiences as a curator, and for future and curators and people who are endeavoring to be curators. If you're working in a really large institution, you might have a very narrow day-to-day. One of the things that I did early in my career was, trucking paintings across the country under the guise of secrecy and the guise of night. But just a lot of different experiences. I think for me here at KHS, a couple of things that stand out was we worked last year on the conservation of a gown. I worked
Oh,
closely
yeah.
with the textile conservator to coordinate the conservation of a dress that was worn in 1825 when Marquis de Lafayette visited.
And you guys pulled that out for me.
Yes.
Did.
That was just such a fun project, just,
And
you
it
know,
looked so
helping
good.
to
It
bring
looked
this,
so good.
this beautiful garment like back to life to share with our visitors, not regularly because it is still just incredibly fragile, but just to be able to, you know,
Yeah.
kind of revive that garment enough so that we can share it more regularly. And then another instance working with a woman here in Kentucky who donated a painting of a famous Kentucky horse breeder who was one of our ancestors. Just getting to meet her, and she was just a force in her
Yeah.
own right, former social secretary at the White House. So just meeting, you know, that was just something happenstance. You know, I pick up the phone one day and then all of a sudden I'm on this path to meeting this amazing woman and collect, you know, being able to bring in a piece of her history, Kentucky history here to our collection.
That's so neat. And if you guys want to see that dress, it's hopefully going to be on display at our
It
new
will.
exhibit
It
next
will,
year.
yeah, in April.
Yeah, that's going to be so great.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
It's always a pleasure to see you all.
Thanks.
Thank you
Pleasure to
guys so
see you.
much.
Great.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Yep.
So
Appreciate
some
it.
extra them.
Sure. All right.
Yes. Thank you guys so much. Obviously they have really, really cool jobs. Truly, they have very cool jobs. So while our next visitors are coming in, I did share earlier, and I will send this out, about what colleges and universities that offer history degrees that are public. Hi friends, come on in. Have a seat wherever you like. But here are some colleges and universities. Ashley and Jennifer were talking about ones that you maybe need higher degrees, and ones that offer master's degrees in history in Kentucky are UK, U of L, and Western Kentucky University offer master's programs. Hi friends, welcome. Have a seat wherever you like. So here's our main camera right here for our friends, and then if anybody asks questions, so we can see them up here. Well, welcome. Thank you all so much for being here. Appreciate it very much, taking your time out of your very busy day. So you all, I kind of gave you all the title of the sages, and that's how I really truly feel about you guys. You're the wise ones who kind of distill all this information to the public. So would you mind just telling us your names and your job titles to start off with?
I'm Kayla Roach. I am the librarian here at KHS.
My name is Daniel Ware and I'm the genealogy librarian here at KHS.
Very cool. So starting with you, Michaela, can you explain what your job is? Like, what do you do here at the Kentucky Historical Society? You do a lot. You do a lot.
Yeah.
You're always so busy.
Mainly it's collection management, which includes acquisitions, cataloging, and then I also do exhibit planning.
Yes. Oh, that's right. You do
Yes,
that. Yeah.
We now have exhibit space up in the library, so I'm trying to
Yeah.
be the exhibit planning up there.
Yes. So if those of you who have never been to our museum in Frankfort, we not only have a gallery where we house the state repository for Kentucky's treasures, we also run a huge library, and we're the state's genealogical library upstairs. So we have two components to the museum. So what about you, Daniel? What do you do here?
I basically do people's genealogy for them, or I help them, basically I help them learn about their family history, look through records, I research for them if they're not able to come here physically in person. And yeah, basically I look through records and research and help people with their family history.
And we have a very active community in Kentucky that wants to know about their family history.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah, we do have a good number of people that come up into our library are usually coming for genealogy. And also we do have a Facebook group called Kentucky Ancestors. And there are a lot of people there, and that is more in general, they usually help each other out by posting questions that others jump on and try to help answer for them. But yes, that it is a very
Isn't there like 40,
popular.
isn't there like 40,000 members?
It's like, I think when I last looked today, it was over 52,000.
Oh, wow, that's a
Yeah,
lot
it
of
keeps,
people.
it keeps going, yeah, it's-
Oh,
yeah.
about their family. That's so cool.
Yep.
Yeah, you guys are very busy. So,
Yeah.
so Michaela, can you tell me what was your educational path? Like, how did you get here to KHS?
Well, I got my bachelor's in history by undergrad and bachelor's in history by undergrad, the minor in English, and then I got my master's degree in library and information science with focus in archival management.
Mhm.
So archival management, that really helps with the exhibit.
Yeah, yeah, that's really good. That probably was really handy for the English. We were talking about that, and even the curator, that every single job in a museum, you have to know how to research and you have to know how to write well.
Yes.
Those are two
Yes.
really big important things. Yeah. What about you, Daniel? How did you get here?
Well, I got my undergraduate bachelor's degree at Georgetown College here in Georgetown, Kentucky, in art history. I have to remember, it's been so far back. I got that in art history, and funny enough, when I was about to graduate, usually a lot of colleges will have like an exit interview that you have to do
Yeah.
with like a registrar. And funny enough, I had just taken a lot of history classes just for the fun of it. And she calculated all my credits and she was like, well, you can minor in this too. So last second, I minored in history. I've always loved history. So pretty much any time I could take a history class or read a book or watch a documentary, I tried to do it. And then basically then I did graduates. Got my master's in library science at the University of Kentucky. And then basically that was able to get me a library job. And then I just basically, because they knew I enjoyed history, my library director basically just like gave me the job of doing people's genealogy for the community. And then I did that for several years. And then I applied for this open position that was here at KHS and got it.
That's great.
Yeah.
And you do regular genealogy programs for the
Yes.
public here
Yes.
as well. Is it once a month?
Yes, yeah.
Once a month,
Yeah.
yeah. To help people. That's really great. So Michaela, what career advice would you give your younger self if you were starting out again?
To start volunteering, get part-time positions in libraries as soon as possible,
Mhm.
because you really, even if it's a public library.
Yeah.
The basic knowledge you get there will help with any library path. So if you want to become a librarian, get your foot in the door as soon as possible. Just getting any experience in the library field at all, because especially like a library I worked at previously, they let me work in the tech department. They
Yeah.
let me order while I was still in school. So I'm able to go, oh, I like this part of library science. I don't like this part of library
Yeah.
science. Because there is a lot you can do with a library
Yeah.
science degree.
Yeah.
It's not, it's a lot more, the field is a lot more varied than people realize.
Yeah. That's great. What about you, Daniel?
Honestly, a lot of what Michaela said, I was going to agree with.
Yeah.
A lot sooner. I would wish that I had, taken up either like internships. Cause I'll be honest, especially like when I was getting out of like high school and even like undergrad, I was kind of a slacker at times for stuff. And so I would have
I don't
probably.
believe that.
Yeah. So I would have probably, gone out and tried to actually find opportunities to get my foot in the door in places. And also, I would say, especially if you are wanting to continue your education past just, undergrad, I would say, because I waited like 5+, like probably about 5 years before I went back to get my master's. And I mean, some people wait longer and,
Mhm.
it all worked out fine, but there's part of me that's like, if I had done this sooner, I may have gotten like a job like this sooner. And,
Yeah.
and, those are kind of the main things I
Yeah.
would say.
That's really helpful. So Michaela, you've touched on this a little bit, but why and how should students pursue your job?
It is, how is, getting the experience.
Yeah.
You need to, you have to go to become a librarian, you have to have a master's degree,
Yeah.
bottom line. And the why is my job's really cool. I get
That is
to go in and research, like we had one of our past exhibits, we had a 1500s book on display. So
Yeah.
I get to go pull the 1545 book and, you're in the job where you're going to be able to
Yeah.
go, oh, today I'm pulling a 1545 book, or I'm going to go pull Dolly Madison's letter to go
Yeah.
to research it. There is no other field where you're going to be able to
Yeah.
interact with these objects all the time. And
Yeah. That's so cool. That's so cool. What about you?
Yeah, once again, kind of like Michaela, I mean, the how would be, yeah, to get a master's degree in library and information science. Now, as far as the genealogy side, I mean, there are a lot of people that will go out and get like a genealogy certificate and things like that. Or in my case, I honestly never have done that. I've just kind of done like what I would consider like the journeyman's path,
Yeah.
where I just kind of was given this duty once upon a time, and I've just done it enough. And because I mean, honestly, doing genealogy, I've honestly told patrons and people that have contacted me that thought that they needed to get that piece of paper, that honestly, I would trust somebody who's just actually done it
Yeah,
and has the experience versus something on a piece of paper that may not have as much experience. So, if you're gonna go the path of genealogy, I would say if you can just get your foot in the door somewhere to work on genealogy, even starting out doing your own genealogy and then working past that. And then, eventually, hopefully, somebody will take notice of you.
Yeah.
And then I would say the reason why you should get a job in genealogy as a genealogy librarian or whatnot is depending on how curious you are, because I am one of those people, I like to go down rabbit holes, as they would say, and
it's a
just,
requirement for any
I mean, I think
librarian.
any kind of librarian in general probably, but like I enjoy the finding out things about people and learning things. Even if it's not, you may come across, if you are doing research for somebody else, you may learn things that don't necessarily that aren't necessarily connected to exactly what that person's wanting. I've had cases where they're asking for A, B, and C, and then I find this other random side story relating to that person, and then I just go down that rabbit hole and enjoy that aspect.
Kind of like a detective.
Yeah,
like detective
Yeah,
work.
exactly. So I mean, if you enjoy that kind of stuff, like I would say, you should pursue it.
Yeah. Well, lastly, to both of you, starting with you, Michaela, what is the coolest or most meaningful experience you've had at your job? Or do you have one?
The coolest thing my job was, I had pulled a book from the archives to start researching it for a potential exhibit item. And there wasn't much information in the catalog record, which happens because previous catalogers just didn't have background knowledge to add to it.
Yeah.
Or the time. And I started, it was a handwritten cookbook, and I started recognizing names. Like, I know these names. And it ended up being Ellen Sawyer's personal cookbook, who is Paul Sawyer, the artist's mother.
Oh.
And and no one knew that we had this in our collection because a previous cataloger just hadn't had the background knowledge to make the connections.
Yeah.
And so that was the coolest thing, was to find that we had this, and it was recipes from our neighbors here in Frankfurt and our mother, and it's like, this is a one of a kind item. No one will ever see this again.
That's so cool. So cool. What about you, Daniel?
I would say, like in general, what I have enjoyed about this job is when I'm able to do a good job and fulfill that person's request,
Yeah.
like I do get thankful people. Like for example, there was an elderly woman who lived in San Diego, and she called our reference desk, and this has been probably 2 or 3 years ago now. But I think her mother had lived here in Kentucky and remembered like an old location, like a park that's no longer here. And we happen to have some old like brochures and materials relating to that location in our archives. And so out of a nice, 'cause she's an older woman who can't obviously travel here, I found some of those images and I made photocopies of them for her. She just wanted to see them again based off of what her mother had talked about. And I mailed those to her, and she sent me like a Hallmark card thanking me. And it's a lot of times when they send little, thank you cards or letters, that really means a lot.
You're giving them their family history of like where they came from.
So it's just like, I'm one of those people, it makes me feel good when they're feeling good, I guess, if that makes any sense. And so any of those kind of like almost sappy, like happy ending stories.
It's so sweet.
Really get me.
That's so great.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you so much for your time and for sharing your wisdom. It's always so good to see you guys. You guys do great work. Appreciate it so much. Thank you all so much.
All right. Thank you.
And one of our next folks we're going to be interviewing is online, and we have one in the room, one virtual, who's kindly willing to work around the schedule to be here with us today. So hi, Stephanie. Welcome. Very happy to see you. Hi, Molly. Hi, Molly.
Y'all.
So happy to see you both. Thank you guys so much for doing this. So on our list of kind of how we've broken people down, I labeled you guys the authors because you guys are the writers really of KHS in your jobs. And so starting, first of all, Molly, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Perfect, excellent. Starting with you, Molly, can you just tell us what you do, like your job title and what you do here at KHS?
Of course. And again, I want to apologize. So currently I'm out today. Again, one of the roles of my job here is a part of that is outreach and tabling events. But I am the 250 KY researcher. And so what I do here is a lot of writing for our social media, portable exhibits, but also things like this where we're tabling out at a high school event at Ashland Living History Weekend. And so my role kind of gets to do a little bit internal facing, but also outward facing like today.
Yeah. So can you explain for those who maybe don't know what 250 KY is and what that program is?
Yeah, so next year is 250 years of American history. And so we have a 250 team at KHS that are in charge of facilitating the commemoration through a Kentucky lens. And so that includes grant programs, events across the state, publications. And so I'm a part of that team as the researcher, but we also have an education specialist and then an administrator who kind of does more of the networking, connecting part.
Amazing, thank you. And same question to you, Stephanie. What is your job title and what do you do here?
So I'm the editor of the Register of the Kentucky Historical Society. This is our academic journal.
Perfect.
It's been published continuously since 1903, so it's been around a minute.
Yeah.
And I work with authors from across the U.S. and also internationally who are super interested in Kentucky history. So we, being the State Historical Society, we write about some of the early stuff that Molly's talking about with early settlement history, all the way up to more present day stuff.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of fun.
That's so cool. You guys are always so busy and doing a lot of great work. So Molly, can you tell our viewers, so you and I are both Gen Z. So for a lot of our viewers are going to be Gen Z, or some are Gen Alpha actually. But can you explain what was your educational path? How did you get here? How did you get the job here at KHS?
So I was always interested in history. I knew that I loved museums, but I think a lot of times it's a very mysterious field because people are like, you'll never get a job with that degree, but I don't think that's necessarily true. obviously it's worked out for me, but for what I did is I studied history and anthropology in undergrad. And during that time, I made connections at museums, I made connections with professors, and then I took a year off after undergrad to kind of figure out what I was passionate about, because history is a large field. And so sometimes, what about your personality or your passions can work well with history? It's that and history kind of connection. And so after that, I decided to pursue an MA in public history because I'm really interested in how can we connect the public with historical content. And other people do history MAs or history PhDs, but for me, public history was the right choice. And then after that, I applied to lots of different jobs, again, looking for something that I was able to connect with the public and also stay with that research focus. And I think I've kind of found the perfect role for me here at KHS.
That's so awesome. What about you, Stephanie? How did you make it here to KHS? You've been here a long time.
I've been here, next year will be 10 years.
Yeah, that's
So,
awesome.
Yeah, it's been a minute. As Molly said, history has been something that I've loved since I was younger. I blame my grandparents for telling me tons of stories about, family history and local history. And I knew it was something that I wanted to do. So when I, in high school, and then when I went to college, I ended up majoring in history, and you can do a lot with a history degree. You can go on to law school, you can do
Yes.
other types, but I knew that I wanted to stick with history. So I went to graduate school at the University of Kentucky and ended up with a master's and a PhD. I originally thought that I wanted to teach because that's what a lot of folks think you do with a PhD, but I don't know. I always wanted to do something a little bit more forward facing, public facing. So I ended up switching gears, but you can do that with a degree like this. It's pretty diverse. And, I ended up using basically my skill set to research and write history. And I've turned that into a career with the journal.
Yeah.
So
That's really cool. And you also are the one who finds the authors.
Yes.
And to do all the article, and you edit it all too.
Yes. So the fun thing about the journal is, and it's not like a magazine, so it's not something that's published immediately. But the fun thing with the journal, especially if we want to do special issues. So if we have folks that tell us, "Oh, I'm really interested in medical history," or "Oh, I'm really interested in environmental history," or something like that. We can curate and craft a special issue, and we will go out and we will find the folks that are doing that research, which is really cool. And we work with them, and it goes all the way from getting the article set to doing editing to it, going through line by line, which can be a little tedious. But at the end, you end up with a finished product, and it's something that goes out to folks, all over. So we do print, and then we also have our articles that are online. So it's pretty cool.
That's really, really cool. So Molly, what career advice would you give your younger self? So if you had it to do over again, what would you change, if anything?
So I would say always be curious. Again, as I've mentioned previously, as we've talked about, there's lots of different ways you can pursue history, lots of different fields, and lots of things you can do with the history degree. And to me, it's always about asking the people who inspire you how they got there. I think this is a great exercise in that, because everyone has such a unique path on this journey. And to me, what I wish I had started earlier was talking to people who knew me and my interests, and people who had careers I liked, and making those connections. So one thing for me is late in my kind of graduate career, I really investigated, what about history do I love? Do I love sitting down in an archive all day? Do I love being alone with my research? Or do I love making those connections? Do I love reaching out? And for me, history to me is about that connection. And so I wish I had more confidence early on to talk to people and be honest about what were my passions, what do I like, and making those connections that you think might not be related. I'm really into event planning, and I'm really into meeting new people. And that seems like, oh, how does that relate to your history interests? But it definitely does. And it comes in handy every single day at my job.
That's so cool. So same question to you, Stephanie. What career advice would you give your younger self?
Molly is absolutely right. Be curious and do not be afraid to ask questions. To build off of that, I would say volunteer at different places, get internships at different places. As we've mentioned, and as you're seeing through, the different interviews that Olivia is doing, it's a pretty broad field.
Yeah.
I mean, you could be archives and you could be just like our coworkers a few
Mhm.
minutes ago who do a lot of library and genealogy research. But volunteer, get in and get some internships and kind of figure out what you want to do. And then, Molly's exactly correct. Don't be afraid to ask questions, because oftentimes a lot of folks who are in positions like us,
Mhm.
we get excited when people ask questions and they're kind of curious about, career paths and what they could do themselves. And we're always happy to give advice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. Molly, what is the coolest or most meaningful experience you've had at your job so far?
So I'm able often to make just cool connections in very casual ways. But one thing that really sticks out to me was, this was a few weeks ago. I write weekly, so we call them 76 for 250, or 76 archival objects for 250 years of US history. And we did one a couple months ago that was about these Lolly Leong papers from this restaurant in Louisville. And one of their descendants actually connected with me and was like, hey, this is my family. The restaurant's no longer a business, but it's so cool that you're highlighting my grandmother, highlighting my family. And it was so meaningful that, this thing that was, sitting in our archive has made a real connection. They're going to come out to KHS, I think, at some point. And it's just been like, wow, like connecting these stories from the archive to real people that live today is just really amazing for me.
Yeah, that's so cool. What about you, Stephanie? Anything stick out?
Yeah,
Or are we all just so fun all the time?
if I stick with some of the publishing, I think some of the most rewarding and meaningful things. I mean, I'm an Appalachian historian by trade. I'm not a Civil War historian or an early American historian, so I always get to learn new things. And especially if we have special issues that come out, we are sort of pushing into areas that aren't as studied, and we're giving voice to communities that maybe haven't had a voice or been represented in the pages of the journal before. And that's very important. And we very much, we've had a couple of issues that have come out to where kind of similar to what Molly was saying. We've had folks that have contacted us and said, I didn't know that about this. I finally feel like I've been heard, and I didn't know this about, my own area of Kentucky that I'm from. And, I think that that's something that is really, really important. And it's some of the most meaningful things that we do.
Yeah, and that's so true. There's always so many things to learn. It's crazy. I can just walk up to your guys' office next door and just ask the most random questions and somebody will know the answer. Like I went up and I'll just ask. I mean, I'm always asking you questions. I feel like know the answer, and you always do.
Not always, but
the office next door, I went up and asked them hey, I need to know for like a kids activity, how far would a Union soldier have to walk in a day on average? And they knew immediately, like something very, very specific. Having all those different experiences and going to people who have more knowledge. And this has been a continuing theme throughout I think everybody that's been here that has talked about how important good writing skills are, and that research component, that really is so stinking important for history. And history, they're going to make you write a lot in college, and then it's needed though, because
the core at the core of being a history person, I mean, you can do a lot with a degree. And I did teach for a minute of college, but I always told the folks that were in my class, it doesn't matter if you're going to be a business major, it doesn't matter if you're going to be like, I don't know, go into the sciences. You need to be able to learn to do research. You need to be able to interpret the things that you're looking at, and you need to be able to write. You got to communicate. It doesn't matter what profession you go into. And
that's so true.
So, I think history and the humanities in general form a really good core for skill sets that you're going to need.
Building those critical thinking skills.
Exactly.
Well, ladies, I thank you so much for Molly. Thank you so much for getting on from Lexington. Appreciate it so much. Thank you, Stephanie, for being here. It's always so good to see you guys. And I'm sure I'll be up in your office bothering you again sometime.
That's another good thing about working here. So many like-minded people and so many fun conversations.
That is so true.
Exactly.
Well, I appreciate it so much. Thank you, guys.
Bye, y'all.
So, wow, we've heard some really great things thus far from all of our friends here. And Stephanie was talking about PhD programs. She is a PhD. We do have several doctors here that work at the Kentucky Historical Society. The same three schools that I listed before that offer master's degrees also offer PhD programs, and those three for Kentucky are University of Kentucky, University of Louisville, and WKU. So those three are the really big ones that offer those PhD programs. There are a lot more in Kentucky that offer bachelor's programs. A lot of private schools that offer bachelor's programs. I got my degree from Asbury University, which is private school. But if you're going to get those master's in PhD degree programs, you're going to have to go to one of those public universities. I'm really excited for you all to meet our next guest because she is the actual second in command here at KHS. Welcome, Leah. You can come on in. Hi. Welcome. So our friends are on the camera right here, and then we have this open in case we have any questions.
Great.
Thank you so much for being here.
thanks
It's
for
such an honor
having
to
me.
have you. So first, Leah, like I already said, you are very important here at KHS. And so this section is I've entitled The Captain. So the people who work in like museum administration. We all obviously are going a million different directions, doing a million different things. The people who are at the helm that kind of keep the ship afloat. So Leah, would you mind telling us your full name and your job title? to start with?
So my name's Leah Craig, and Deputy Director is my job title here at Kentucky Historical Society.
Yeah, that's awesome. So going along with that, Leah, what exactly does the Deputy Director do for the Kentucky Historical Society?
That is such a great question. So the Executive Director is the person that is the main leader, it's kind of same as a President CEO, the main boss, right? So Deputy Director is that second in command. If he were to be out for any reason, then I kind of take the place so that things keep running. But on a day-to-day basis, especially when he's here, a big part of supporting him and implementing the vision that he and with our organization, we have a board of directors. So they're kind of setting the mission, the goals of the organization. And so a big part of the deputy director is taking what they're saying and what their vision is and making sure that's getting implemented in an operation sense. So a part of that means thinking about budgets. It's thinking about staffing. It's about how to support the staff. So a big part of what I like about the job that I do is that I'm supporting people like you and people all across the organization to make sure that you all have the resources and the tools to be able to do what you need to do, and the direction too of where to go and where to move, and so that we're all hopefully moving in a similar direction.
The same direction, yeah. So Leah, and I know you and I've talked about before, you have such an interesting path of like how you got here to KHS. Would you mind sharing that?
Sure. Yeah, so I started my undergraduate degree at Western Kentucky University, Go Tops. I was a religious studies and history double major. I didn't think necessarily that museums were, like that wasn't what I necessarily wanted to be when I grew up. I didn't even think about it that way. And I worked for a couple of summers during college at Shaker Village of Pleasant Hill and Harrodsburg. And at the time they had a living history program where we were dressed up in period dress and giving tours and things like that. And I had a blast doing it. It was so much fun. As a history major, it was really great, but I still didn't really think of that as
a viable career. I was just like, oh, this was a really neat thing to do over the summers. And so by the time I got to finish with my undergraduate degree, I kind of still only thought of history as, oh, if you major in history, you go on to be a history teacher.
Yeah.
But I wasn't quite, I didn't know if that's what I wanted to do. So when I graduated, I moved to Alabama got married that summer, went to be with my husband, and while I was there, kind of stumbled into the opportunity of AmeriCorps. And if you all aren't familiar with AmeriCorps, think of it kind of like the Peace Corps, but it's here in the United States, and you're usually paired with either an educational institution or a nonprofit to serve that organization in some capacity. And it's usually like either a 2 or 4 year job that you do, and then you're done with the program. So it's a really great program for young people. If I say, like, especially if you don't know what you want to do with your life, it's a great way to kind of try something out and get some experience without being committed to it for the long term. So I did that in Alabama with an American Red Cross chapter.
That's so cool.
And I fell in love with working with nonprofits, but I missed the history part of it.
Yeah.
So I went back to graduate school to Auburn University, War Eagle, and got my degree in it was a master's in history with a certificate in public history. And that's where, you know, I was like, yes, this is that perfect marriage of nonprofit work and my interest in history. So from there, I went to Oklahoma History Center and was a museum educator and did that for a while. Then went on to be executive director at a county museum here in Kentucky. And then worked at the National Corvette Museum for a while in their collections as a registrar. And that was a lot of fun. I'm not really a car person, so a lot of it was lost on me. But it was a really cool just opportunity to develop my skills in collections and get to work with a really awesome collection before I came here to KHS.
Were you there at the Corvette Museum? Were you there before or after the fell in?
After the sinkhole.
After the sinkhole
It was
incident.
after,
Okay. Wow. What a time, I'm sure. So what career advice, you kind of touched on this a little bit, what career advice would you give your younger self if you had to do over?
Yeah, I think there's kind of 2 things. In general, I would say what has helped me along my career, and I'm glad I've done this along the way, is just being open to opportunities as they come along, like AmeriCorps. But even other things that I took advantage of in school, like leadership programs that I applied for, or even just taking classes that were maybe a little bit outside my interest area that I think gave me some perspective. Or sometimes it was things that was like, oh, I tried this and I don't actually really like this. But sometimes that's just as helpful in your career as doing those jobs or those classes or whatever programs, whatever it is, that you're like, oh, no, actually, this helps me find out what I want to do because I know I don't like doing this. And that's okay. But through those opportunities, if you're just being a sponge, observe and learn from the people around you, and you can gain so much from that, no matter what it is that you're doing. Just always be learning. I think the other thing. The other thing I would tell myself, and this would be more for me in particular, I'm kind of that high achieving perfectionist kind of person. And I think along the way, grades and everything in your schoolwork is super, super important. But it's also important to remember that there are other things that are also important. And so I think it's just about knowing yourself and what your values are, and being true to those along the way can help you in your career and all aspects of your life.
Yeah, that's great advice. So you kind of touched on this a little bit, but why and how should students pursue your job? So why museum administration?
Yeah. For me, I love museum administration, because it's a way to empower others to do the really awesome work that we do, and that, with history in general, but museums, I see as a part of helping society be better in terms of educating people outside of the school, the traditional
Yeah.
school system, giving people those opportunities. And so, yeah, I think it's just a part of, if you wanted to do this work, think about why you want to do it.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's not for everybody, and that's okay. Some people are gonna have careers in other ways, and that's okay too. The museum field is not known for making a lot of money, and so,
Yeah.
and I think we hear that a lot with like teachers will say this, and people in nonprofits and things like that. Like, there has to be a very deep reason for you to be
Yeah.
motivated to
You have to
wanna
have a
do this
why
job.
in order to
Yes.
do it.
Yes, and but I think that why can also translate into so many other jobs and career fields and things like that. So, it's not to discourage people at all. I think it's just finding what it is that you're passionate about, and that you feel like you can make a contribution and make a difference in.
Yeah.
Something that I heard from a mentor once was, just in whatever job or whatever it is that you're doing, just try to leave it a little bit better.
Yeah.
And so I try to remember that. Museum work is amazing, but you can make a difference no matter who you are and whatever field or job that you're in.
Yeah, that's great. And lastly, what is the coolest or most meaningful experience you've had at your job?
Yeah.
You've had so many different ones. I'm sure it's hard to choose.
It's hard, especially across the many different jobs that I've had. Something that comes to mind is when I was at the National Corvette Museum, the tornadoes that came through in 2021, I think it was, that hit part of the Motorsports Park, which is part of the Corvette Museum. And we were a part of recovering some collection artifacts that were damaged because of that. That was a really meaningful experience of helping with that effort. And at the same time, as part of that disaster, the African American Museum that is there in town was also affected. And so us and a few folks from the Kentucky Museum were able to help them recover from that as well. So those are kind of those really memorable experiences. But some of them, like here at KHS, for me, we went through a American Lights and Museums accreditation, which is kind of a deep look at the museum and our administration and function and things like that. And I got to help the organization.
Yeah,
get through
that's when you
that.
started here. Yeah.
Yes, and that was really great to get through that whole project, and we got that certificate in the mail that we had achieved that reaccreditation, and that was just a really great feeling to know that I've been a part of helping to make that possible. Obviously, there were a lot of people involved in that with anything else. Anytime we have an exhibit opening, I get that feeling. Anytime I'm interacting with kids, we'll get that great feeling. And I see Ashley's joining us.
Yes.
So yeah, there's lots of things that
Yeah.
I've been really grateful to be involved in this work. It's a lot of fun, cool experiences along the way.
And that's so true. And especially now that when we had the flooding here in February, we've had the shoe on the other foot
Yes.
where even the museums here in town, Liberty Hall, historic site, how all the different museums, even here in Frankfurt, when the terrible flooding, how we all helped each other.
Yes.
People would go over there, they'd come over here, and just were willing to really help each other during those things that we can't control, natural disasters.
Right.
So that's really great. Leah, I appreciate your time so
Yeah,
much.
you're
Thank you
welcome.
so much.
Thanks for having me.
I
And
really,
thanks to
really-
everybody out there
Yeah.
virtually for.
I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah,
That's
thanks
so
so much.
awesome.
All right, I'll see you
Thank
later.
Hi, Ashley.
Hi, Olivia.
Fantastic. So we should have a couple more joining us for our next session, as well as Ashley. Ashley is also on outreach, like Molly was, and kindly volunteered to help us out even during a time when she is not currently in the building.
Just an example of outreach.
Yeah, very, very true. And the folks that we will have in the session after this one, because this is the story shares, so the people who help with the different commissions and all those different things. And then we'll have the education team, which I'm on, and we definitely are the ones that do the most like community outreach, meaning the story sharers and the learning team. We're the most public facing people. And so that is a huge part of our job, is doing all of that different work for sure. Welcome, Michael. How's it going? Welcome, Jim. Yeah, absolutely. Welcome, friends. Ashley is on Zoom. Have more friends joining us. Thank you all so much for being here. So we have this in case anybody has any questions that they can type in, and we're maybe running off of this right here. So welcome.
Hello.
Thank you guys so much for being here. It's really great to see everyone. As I was just sharing this kind of segment, I titled the story sharers. So we've heard from a lot of different groups. Story sharers we're kind of the public facing people. We're the ones who are directly out the public the most. So would you mind starting with you, Ashley, just sharing like your full name and your job title?
Yes, so my name is Ashley Spinneberg Perkins, and I am the America 250 Kentucky Commission Administrator. So what that means is I help coordinate events and activities across the state of Kentucky for the nation's 250th next year, which is looking at America's birthday next year on July 4th.
That's great. And you, Michael?
Yeah. I'm Michael Kilmore. I'm the oral historian here at Kentucky Historical Society. So that means kind of two things. One is I'm actually the one recording and doing new oral histories for our archives, but also kind of like Ashley, I also help with a commission called the Kentucky Oral History Commission. It is the only statewide commission in the nation dedicated to oral history through outreach and programming.
That's really cool. And what about you, Jim?
Hi, I'm Jim Siever. I am the Community Engagement Coordinator here at the Kentucky Historical Society. And as the name would suggest, I always tell people that I have 4.5 million bosses. I never know who's going to email me, who's going to give my office a call. I tend to work on 3 different things. I do a lot of constituent relations. I manage our cemetery initiatives, cemetery preservation to be specific. And then the thing that takes up most of my time is that I operate and coordinate the state's roadside historical marker program.
That's really cool. So Ashley, I know you touched on this, but what does your day-to-day look like as the administrator for KY 250?
So part of the reason I love my job is because every day is different. Obviously, I am in a car. So right now I'm at the Henry Clay Estate. So some days I'll be out in the field. I'll be setting up at tables, talking to community members, talking to people about what KHS is, what the 250th is, how they can get involved. I also do the grants program. So for the past 2 years, I have managed the America 250 Kentucky Grant Program, and that has funded over $250,000 per grant cycle for, I think, above 50 groups at this point. So that's another thing that I do. Like I'd mentioned earlier, I also coordinate between 250 groups across the state and the state commission itself. So the commission that I keep referring to is made up of 14 members, and these members help coordinate events and activities across the state, get people interested in the 250th, and they help us plan big commemorative events. And so I'm also going out into the community and talking with people who have formed their own local commissions and helping them guide them through the 250th. So sometimes it's kind of overwhelming when you're starting a project like this and you think, oh my gosh, 250 years of history that I have to cover. And so I'm kind of an assistant, I guess you could think, that goes in and kind of helps guide people through how to celebrate and commemorate the 250 years of American and Kentucky history.
That's really cool. What about you, Michael?
To kind of like Ashley, you'll probably know, especially with public facing and community engagement, every day is a different day. There's not really a set schedule. And so for me, there's a lot of managing what's the Kentucky Oral History Commission, the KOHC. A big part of that is our grants. We're about to have another grant cycle up due next Sunday. So a lot of that is helping people with their applications, answering questions, putting up stuff on the website, and then promoting it as well. But also on the other side, another day we're working on our archives and some of our more accessibility for our oral histories that have been recorded. We're trying to make sure how can we kind of take that next step and making sure people can use our archives. And then really recently, especially with the digital age, kind of the shift in how oral histories are created just digitally. They're no longer cassettes. That has created this whole new kind of almost world of how do we manage this? How do we prepare for this? And really, how can we as Kentucky Historical Society in our archives make sure we keep our digital information to the next age?
Yeah. And for those who maybe are not familiar, what is oral history?
Yeah, I should have started with that.
I thought about that, yeah.
Yeah, so for those who don't know and have been wondering, oral history is kind of, as the name sounded, it's kind of a voiced history of life history. So for us, it's a lot of, it's kind of different than folk life, but really for it, it's a lived experiences expressed and shared through kind of this format of being recorded and being interviewed from a narrator, what we call an interviewer. So really the narrator is sharing their life experiences or some perspective on a theme. And that's being recorded in that medium. So it really talks about where most people think of archives and kind of manuscripts with these primary sources that are all written down. Oral histories is that new component of being able to record people's voices literally and having that preserved.
Yeah. So kind of like a news interview without the picture.
Yeah,
Just the
basically.
sound. Yeah, which is really cool. What about you, Jim?
I was just thinking Michael's job involves a lot of listening and mine does too, but I also end up doing a lot of talking. So Michael is my office mate and he will tell you that I spend a lot of time on the phone. I do a lot of email and a lot of what I do involves code switching or recalibrating, kind of figuring out who I'm in touch with, what they are asking for, and how to get them there. So on any given day, I'm on the phone with state government officials from the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet. I may be speaking to city and county officials around the state, but more often than not, I am speaking to people like you all, or maybe your grandparents. I get a lot of calls from senior citizens who are interested in historical marker projects or have a concern about one that maybe got hit by a car, because when you manage a roadside marker program, people don't always know how to parallel park and sometimes they back into them.
And those are those green signs that you'll see all around the state of Kentucky that are beside the road.
Yes, so there are close to 2,500 historical markers in all 120 counties in the Commonwealth. Kentucky actually has one of the oldest and largest programs of that kind in the nation. So it's my job to take care of the ones that exist and to help put a few new markers out on the landscape every year. So I run a competitive grant process for people who apply to have new marker topics commemorated. And if the topic is approved and it meets the criteria of our program, then the state government will pay for that new historical marker to go up at no expense to you all.
Yeah, that's really cool. So Ashley, starting with you, what was your education path? Like, how did you get to be here at KHS?
So I always knew I wanted to work in the history and museum field. And so I went to Northern Kentucky University and received my bachelor's in history and anthropology. And then after that, I immediately went into my master's program, which is in public history. And so I'll explain like the difference between history and public history. So history might be like, you're reading your books and I'm sorry, guys, please correct me if you have a different view, but like you're reading your books and it's kind of like an internal thing. So you're learning history on your own. And then public history, what I do is when you are sharing that history with other people and making that history accessible to different audiences. And so that's what I did is I went to NKU for both of my degrees for my bachelor's and my master's.
Awesome. What about you, Michael? How did you end up here?
Yeah, well, I was actually on the other side of the Ohio River from Ashley. I was at University of Cincinnati. I did my bachelor's in history there. You don't really see a lot of public history bachelor's degrees. They're normally just history, maybe some certificates. But then much like Ashley, immediately after I got my bachelor's degree in history, I went and got my master's in public history. And actually did a pretty good job explaining how it is. Public history is much more that kind of outward and of being able to engage with communities and share history in kind of a more public fashion. And I'd also say that part of that experience was not just educational, but through internships. I was at the Cincinnati Museum Center. I was working with the national parks a little bit, really kind of getting relevant work experience, as well as getting that kind of more academic training.
Yeah. What about you, Jim?
Yeah, so my educational background, I'm from Lexington originally. I did my undergraduate degree in history at the University of Kentucky, and then I moved away for 18 years. I ended up getting a master's and a PhD in history at Indiana University. And then while I was being an academic historian, I was simultaneously working in the wine industry. So I had a hospitality background as well. And it was those two skill sets that I brought together to do the work that I do today. Just to piggyback off of something that Ashley said. So I loved when I was an academic historian, and I love being on a university campus, but a university campus is very much an oasis. People go there for what they're seeking to learn about history. Our job as staff of the Kentucky Historical Society is not to be an oasis, but rather an irrigation system where we are helping take history out to communities around the state and working closely with those communities to help tell their stories and highlight what's important to them about the past.
Yeah, that's really great. So Ashley, I gotta ask you, I know that we haven't actually reached 2026 yet, which will be the 250th anniversary, but what is the coolest or most meaningful experience you've had at this job so far?
It's definitely I know it's a large part of my job, but it's definitely the public outreach. I mean, getting to go places in my state and both outside of my state. I mean, all over. We have 120 counties. We have so much history here in Kentucky. I was born and raised in Kentucky, and I learn things every day. So honestly, that is the coolest part to me, is getting to travel and go places. And I would say probably the highlight of one of the places I went to was Washington, D.C. So I got to go there for a 250 conference, and I got to have dinner in the Library of Congress and the Smithsonian Institution of American History. So I was a little bit spoilt there for a bit, but those are definitely some highlights. It's just the places I get to see and visit.
That's so crazy. What about you, Michael?
For me, one of the coolest interactions when managing our oral histories is that we have about 10,000 oral histories here at KHS, going about 50 years. So in the 1970s, there were people out recording in every county in Kentucky, basically. And one of the cool things about my job is being able to see how that is impacting people today. We sometimes get calls and emails from people realizing that their grandparents or someone they knew was interviewed, who has now since passed away. And this is literally like the first time they've heard their voices in years. And so it's this really interesting and cool, unique thing with oral history, and that especially in Kentucky, that we've done a lot of work, and we're still doing this work to kind of preserve these voices, and not just from an academic side where people are looking at George Washington's papers, but hearing people who lived and interacted in Kentucky, and hear how they spoke and expressed themselves in their lived experiences.
Yeah, that's so great. What about you, Jim?
Best part of the job?
Yeah.
So for me, my favorite part of the job is when I get to go to the dedication of a new state historical marker. We operate on a 2-year project timeline for each marker project. So it's a long time coming, and it takes quite a bit of time for someone to apply for a marker, for it to be designed, then manufactured by the foundry, installed by the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet. So the dedication event is almost like the wedding day for that marker. And it's always a nice big community affair, and people get to stand up and talk about what their history means to them and what it means to see that history commemorated on the landscape with a state historical marker. So people are always really, really excited about that. We actually have one this evening. If anybody is joining us from southeastern Kentucky in Middlesboro and Bell County. Side note, Middlesboro is actually entirely inside a meteorite crater. So look that up if you're a geology or astronomy fan. But we have a marker dedication at 5 p.m. At the football stadium for Middlesboro High School. And it's commemorating Kentucky sports history and Kentucky civil rights history. It's about someone named Greg Page. And yeah, I know that community is extremely excited about that event. So 5 p.m., Bradner Stadium, Middlesboro, Kentucky. Feel free to join us. And I wish I could be there. I will actually be at a different event in Mercer County this evening.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just kind of goes to show that we try and get out of the building as much as we can
Yeah.
and take history to the people.
For sure. And I've gotten the opportunity to go to at least one marker dedication that I can remember. And we did it at a military base. Was that just a month ago, maybe?
Yeah, month and a half.
Yeah, and that was really cool.
Yeah.
So doing it for all the public, you know, all the public, military, civilian, all that different stuff. That's really awesome.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you so much for your time. Clearly, these people are going every which way and they're super busy going around the state. So we really appreciate your time and sharing your wisdom with us all. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. And I would like to say, if anybody does have any questions about my job in particular or careers in history, Olivia, please feel free to share my contact information with them.
I will.
Same.
I will.
Yep.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
So,
Thanks.
thanks, Ashley.
Bye.
So friends, we've heard from some pretty incredible people so far. Clearly, I have really cool coworkers, and I'm really excited for our next session because it's my department. Yay! And we have the best, absolutely the best person that could ever represent for the job, and that's our administrator. Hi, Megan. Sure. Wherever you want to sit.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hi, everyone.
Hi,
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Megan. So Megan is the administrator for my department. So, and she's really awesome. And she's also one of the staff who's been here the longest, actually at the
Yes,
Kentucky
over
Historical-
12 years.
That's crazy. That is so great. Would you mind introducing your full name to start in your title?
Yes.
KJs?
So I'm Megan Sauter, the Museum Programs Administrator for the Learning Services Team, which is the Museum Education Department.
Yes, that's awesome. And can you explain a little bit about what our department is and what you specifically do?
Yes.
Jess?
So as an administrator, I handle a lot of paperwork, the business side of things. So that means dealing with budgets, purchase requests, organizing meetings. But I also oversee staff that deal with all of our museum education programs. And so that can be anywhere from field trips.
Yes.
And so we see over 10,000 students a year. And so with a field trip, they can visit all 3 of our sites, and our department handles the tours. And so we guide them through the old state capitol to learn about civics, through a Kentucky journey, which is 12,000 years worth of Kentucky history. And we develop those materials too. So we're creating like seek and finds for students, investigation stations, other lessons that they can do on site. And that's just one of our programs. So when I'm saying programs, it's a public service that we do that provides educational experiences and opportunities. And so another one of those would be community engagement.
Yeah.
And so we go and do outreach events. A lot of those are at like fairs or on our site where we focus around the holidays. And that's just a way to get out there and engage with people. So you have to like people to be in this role.
Yes.
Engaging and educating.
Yeah.
And then we also do outreach. So outreach means we travel from our host site into the communities. And so we may go and visit a library or a school, and we're doing like hands-on history activities or a lecture for adult programs. And then we also, when we travel in the schools, we focus on National History Day. And so maybe some of you have participated in that before. And that is a history contest. And so you can choose a topic in Kentucky history or national history, and then create a paper or documentary or performance. And then I get to help judge those. And so as Olivia.
Yeah, it's
So,
really fun. I'm
yeah.
always impressed by how amazing the projects are.
Yes, and then they can go on to nationals in DC and compete
Yeah.
there. And so we get to curate a lot of those programs, which is really neat.
It's really fun. I love working with the kids. So Megan, you've had a wild like education journey. It's taken you literally all over the world. Can you
Yes.
share that?
Yes. So it's not a traditional like history education background. My undergraduate degree is from Georgetown College. And so it's in visual arts, where I took tutorial studies classes, art history, business, as well as like the hands-on studio art classes. And from there, I studied in Italy, marble sculpting and bas-relief ceramics. I studied in Japan, karakuri, which is carving wooden puppets. And then I actually got a position here because of my art background. And so it was through a grant-funded position to come here and look at our art collection, specifically our 2D images, and how I could use those in the classroom for students to analyze them. And so once I got that, then I moved up from there full time. But I also have a master's in art education. And so art education is very similar to museum education because it's project-based, it's hands-on learning. And so I utilize that to create lesson plans and different things for the museum. And then from there, I started working on a Master of Fine Arts, and that helped me with kind of my hobby outside of the day-to-day job. And currently, I'm working on a Master's of Business Administration.
Yeah.
And so where I'm an administrator, that is extremely helpful. It deals with a lot of like business law classes, finance classes, HR. And so that has helped me immensely in this position as well as other things too.
Yeah, they're like, well, I guess without the managers, there are 9 of us that Megan has to wrangle and make sure that we all are on the same page of what we're doing as a team.
Yeah.
And she's a trooper and she's so patient with us. What advice, Megan, would you give your younger self if you had to do it over?
Let's see. I would say networking. So thinking back about being in middle school and high school, just going out to different museum events and even conferences. So the Kentucky Museum of Heritage Alliance puts on an annual conference. And when you're at those events, you're going to be with like-minded people and future colleagues. And so that's a great way to get your foot in the door, to get people to recognize you, and to see like if you're a good fit for that museum too. So if you want to go into museum education, trying out different museum programs, science-based programs, history programs, all kinds of things to see where you could land.
Yeah. That's so cool. We get to make history fun.
Yes.
You know, we're not just sharing strictly what we have, but what you can do with it, which is really fun. So why and how should students pursue your job?
Let's see how. So I received my position because it was a grant funded position. So I just looked out there, found something and applied for it. And from that, I was hired on full time and then moved up from there. But I also volunteered a lot. So I volunteered at the Living Arts and Science Center, which is like a science-based museum that was also doing arts. And from volunteering there, I was hired on as a contracted educator. And so just like part-time positions, teaching field trips, teaching summer camps. And that's a good way to get your foot in the door, even just reaching out to the different museums to say, hey, what volunteer opportunities do you have if you don't see anything posted on their website? And then for why, so you have to like kids.
Yes.
You have to like engaging with the public and learning. Because with any museum, there's so many different topics to learn and you're continuously learning. There's so much history out there that you can just continue to learn. So you have to like those things too. And that's really why I do it, because I love learning. I love being around people. I love supporting people.
You're really good at it. You're really good at it. So what is the coolest or most meaningful experience you've had here at your job?
I think I'm going to go back to like my first one.
Yeah.
Because when I was hired, I was developing a program on my own and working with outside consultants. And it was a grant funded position. So I had to manage the budget and then follow different groups of students over time, over 3 years. It was a 3-year project. And so I worked with a local elementary school and it was a 3rd grade class. And I would go into their class continuously throughout the year. And I would develop lesson plans and take artifacts, 2D images into the classroom. And we would analyze them. And then they would come see me at the museum at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And so I followed them for 3rd grade, then 4th grade, and then 5th grade too. So I was with these kids for 3 years. And what we noticed is that by looking at 2D images in our collection and like analyzing them, and I would ask them questions, what do you see in this picture? What makes you say that? So they're trying to come up with claims and evidence for their thinking. And so that translated into their writing. And so we had a team analyze that with like pre-writing assessments where they were writing about things before the program and after the program. And it proved those questioning techniques and historic literacy encouraged them to write about evidence and back up their claims. And so that was really cool to see happen with the students. And then we actually applied for an ASLH, so American Association of State and Local History. There's so many acronyms.
There
Things
are,
like to
there's so many.
but we won a Leadership in History award. And so that was pretty outstanding for everybody else to recognize that program as well. It was pretty impactful.
That was the History Smarts program.
It was, yeah. And you even met somebody recently.
Yes, that was crazy.
Yeah.
So we were at an outreach last weekend in Red River Gorge, and the volunteer that was assigned to us was a freshman at UK, studying tourism management. And she told me, oh yes, I've heard of you all. There was a lady that came to my classroom and she really made me like history. I think her name was Megan. And now she's a freshman in college. She still remembered you and remembered how you made her questions. She's like, she wouldn't just let me say something. She would ask me why I thought that, and so she still remembered that, and it made a huge impression on her. And so that was crazy. That was just a week ago that she told us that.
Yeah, I
It was
know. And
crazy.
so those are those meaningful experiences
Yeah.
that when working in a museum and working with students that you get to have.
Yes, because it's a good reminder of that what we do does make a difference.
Yes.
And it does have those lasting impacts. And there's so many opportunities to work. So our department doesn't just do the regular ones, but we're also working with like the America 250 program, and we also work with the library and research. We're kind of, I feel like, the ones that everybody comes to get their information out to the public.
Yes, yeah, especially with outreach too. And we work a lot with exhibits as well. And so
Oh,
we've
yeah.
spent time developing exhibits because that's a part of education too. And then working with the library folks to bring students up there in the research library.
Yeah. So you should work in museum education because
Yeah.
we get to do all the things. It's so fun, from writing exhibit labels for exhibits, for special things, to doing that.
Mhm.
Megan, thank you so much for your time and for doing it.
Not a problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Good luck, everyone.
Yes.
And feel free to reach out to me, Megan Sauter, if you have any questions about museum education or administration.
Yeah, she's the best person to ask.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you
Nice.
so much,
Thank
Megan.
you.
And just to close out our time together, I just wanted to again let everyone know that I'll be sending all this information that we've compiled, the different people who volunteered to share their emails and things like that. I will share those out. I'm also going to share our internship page, the internships we offer here at the Kentucky Historical Society. We had college kids work here. In the summers, we have high school kids that work here for volunteer opportunities. And so that's really cool. And I will share all that information. And the last thing I want to share was just about me and how I ended up here. So as I mentioned before, I went to Asbury University, go Eagles, and studied history. I was a music minor. I knew that I really enjoyed history, but I wasn't really sure where it was going to lead. But during college, I worked at the Ark Encounter in Northern Kentucky. So more of an on the attraction side, but still working in a type of museum adjacent environment. We're dealing with massive amounts of public. And then after graduating, I graduated December of 2021. And then an interim position opened up here at the Kentucky Historical Society, working specifically with kids, working as an interim museum educator on a temporary basis, for working full-time for 6 months. And I got the job because, going back to what different people were saying, of finding, even if it's not exactly in the museum field, finding a job adjacent to it. I got the job because of my experience of working with the public in an educational setting and working with a lot of groups of people and being familiar with the public. So having that experience of, oh, this person will know how to conduct themselves around the public for a tour or something like that. I also started off working a lot of visitor services things, so working desk here, helping in the gift shop, kind of starting on the ground floor, and then was hired on full-time as an educator dealing with military history primarily. And so then I have developed into being a coordinator now, where I don't just get to give the tours that are written and the field trips that are written, but I get to help write them. I now get to help create programs, whether they're large events, like I worked with the America 250 folks to celebrate the Marquis de Lafayette's farewell tour. Here in Frankfurt, we put on like a large community celebration, a ball, all those different things, whether it's large events or smaller events like that, virtual, in person, kids. I love working with kids, adults, all those different things. And it's so fun. So yes, don't be afraid to start on the ground floor, doing whatever you can, develop those writing skills. Even though we work a lot with kids, we still have to write the field trips. We still have to write the learning labs. We still have to, when we give tours, we have to write the tours. We have to write for special exhibits. I had to write the exhibit labels that go in the cases. So there's a lot of things that go into combining all of those skills of working with the public. And it's so worth it. And the big question I think that everybody kept coming back to, and I so appreciate all their wisdom. I've learned so much from these people here, and they're really great, is the why. And so I have this coin right here. I don't know if you can see it. It's kind of a little metal token that I keep at my desk because I grew up, I was homeschooled. And so I grew up going on a lot of field trips to museums, and Fraser History Museum in Louisville used to have a big homeschool program, and I used to go regularly. And one of their day camps, the lady that taught that ended up being the director who hired me to this job after college. So literally someone who taught me a history class when I was 8 ended up hiring me out of college to work on the education team. And we figured that out because of this coin, because she remembered ordering them and she was the only one that taught that class. So it's so cool how everybody's jobs interact and work together. And so I keep that to remember how much that meant to me. And obviously that those type of programs made me want to pursue history in the first place. And so it's remembering, like the young woman who came to us and talking about working with Megan, that it does matter. History does matter. People's stories do matter, and getting to share that, it can stay with people. It can change people's lives. It changed mine. And so that's one of the reasons that I wanted to share all the wisdom that these people have here to a larger audience, because it is worth it. It's worth studying. If that's something that you feel called to do, of course, you're not going to get rich, but it is a really worthwhile endeavor. And so that is my why for why I do that. And it's worth it to hear little kids come in and say, this is the best day I've ever had. We get to have kids from all over the state that come in, and I've had little kids that have never been to a big city before, maybe have never been to the Capitol before. This is their first time experiencing any of this. I had a little girl tell me this is her first museum she's ever been to. It's really a privilege to get to be that first interface that people maybe ever will have with history. We may be the only reason that people ever care about history. And so that's a great responsibility and a great honor. So I appreciate you all taking time out of your very busy schedules to spend it with us here at the Kentucky Historical Society. If you ever have the opportunity, please come to Frankfurt and see us. We'd love to see you all down here. And like I said, I will be sharing all of the educational opportunities, the internship opportunities. I'll even share our jobs page. We are hiring right now. So if you're close to graduating this fall, please feel free to check that out. If you're in middle school or high school, please compete in National History Day. I'll share that link as well. And like I said, come volunteer with us. But thank you again for the time that you spent with us. Really appreciate it and hope to see you all soon. Have a good one.